Growing up with something is incredible. You can watch as it soars and evolves, and you can experience some truly wonderful things. Sometimes, despite the flaws, you fall in love with a franchise. Sometimes I look at the Sonic games that released when I was a kid and wonder how I'm a fan of this series. But you're never really ready to leave something behind, either because you've outgrown it or just simply because it stopped existing. One day it just happens and you forget. But sometimes you'll remember bits and pieces. Sometimes you'll find something eating away at you that you just can't quite remember. I'm not very picky on what I watch. If it's live action, animated, anime, stop motion, it really doesn't matter to me. However, until these last few years, I was really only exposed to one anime. I watched a few episodes of Naruto, I didn't really like it. Dragon Ball aired too late for me to watch it, but something I watched as a kid always stuck with me. A show about a young robot trying to become a boy. I remembered liking it. I couldn't really remember much of it, but I remembered it being old. I was exposed to a lot of stuff that existed before my time, such as The Simpsons, Popeye, and of course Tom and Jerry. Shout out to my goats! Despite growing up, I remembered them and kept up. I remember watching old episodes of The Simpsons.
You people have stood in my way long enough. I'm going to clown college.
I don't think any of us expected him to say that.
Reading the Popeye comic strips, and just rewatching the same Tom and Jerry shorts. I always hated when that, depressed dog showed up. I didn't know what he was doing in my funny, cat and mouse show. I didn't know that there were, multiple Tom and Jerry shows. Yet there was one little thing that I couldn't quite remember. It wasn't until these last few years that I got more into anime through Dragon Ball.
I won't forget this, kid! I'll be back!
One Punch Man, and I guess Avatar. Some people fight this being an anime, and you could not pay me to care. I've also gotten really into Yokohama Kaidashi Kikia recently. This doesn't fit comfortably into the script anywhere, but I'm obsessed with it and it might get its own video at some point. I own the entire manga collection. I finally remembered what had been haunting me for years. A show that I remembered loving. Astro Boy. There's a lot of things I remembered about it, but I couldn't really place specifics. There's the machine gun butt, the funny human designs, the catchy theme song I really just could never place the lyrics to, and the fact that Atlas was one of my favorite characters from the show. So that's what this video is for. I rewatched most of the Astro Boy 1980 anime run. I say most because the website I was watching it on did not have everything, if you catch what I'm saying. There's been other Astro Boy anime, such as the original 1960s run, and the more modern 2003 run.
Astro's very busy. You can't just walk in here and expect him to say,
Hey, something wrong?
As well as the 2009 movie. After a bit of poking around, the run from the 1980s is what I believe I watched as a kid. So, now, anywhere from 10 to 15 years later as a 21-year-old, does Astro Boy 1980 still hold up? Do I like it as much now as I did then? This is the part where I ask you to like and subscribe. Yeah, it's alright. It's pretty dated. The animation can feel a bit cheap and stilted, and the art usually isn't anything outright incredible, but overall, yeah, I liked it. The voice acting can, leave a lot to be desired.
He's the boss of all Chicago.
Okay, boss, I'll do it.
It's often also a show that likes to re-explain the plot or who characters are throughout an episode, since it was designed to be played live, but it's really just a small issue. It's really, despite all of the flaws, I enjoyed it.
You can't just shoot a hole into the surface of Mars.
There were absolutely some times where it felt like it dragged. The pacing very often flip-flopped from extremely slow to insanely fast. The pacing was by far the worst part of the show. You can forgive a bit of the rough voice acting or the old animation, but sometimes large chunks of time would progress without it being super clear, or they need to rush through a bunch of story beats to fit it all within the episode's time. It's also pretty clearly aged. For the most part, it's fine. Probably 98% of it is fine. But there's some outdated language here and there. There's a few character designs that aren't the greatest. Obviously, I'm not showing them on screen. There's also, whoa, you cannot be doing that.
Wow, they seem to be really devoted SpongeBob fans.
In particular, what I enjoyed the most was the character of Astro and how he interacts with the world, namely other robots. Astro is naturally curious about the world and the nature of life. He's always asking questions. He has a desire for companionship which can be seen in his family. He's a kind-hearted soul who always tries to do the best, even if it means saving someone who he shouldn't like. To quote the intro of the show, "He is brave and gentle and wise." Tobio Tenma is the boy Astro is modeled after. After being neglected and losing his life in an unfortunate traffic incident, Tobio's likeness became Astro, like his cow lips becoming the point of Astro's iconic hair. Dr. Tenma creates and tries to raise Astro, who's still called Tobio at this point, but he ends up taken to a robot circus, because it's a 1980s anime.
Put some more elbow grease into that. I want to see that thing sparkle.
There he meets Kathy, who's really the first person to truly treat Astro like an actual person. Even Jump, Tobio's dog, has been hesitant to accept this new being into its life. Kathy actually had an extremely profound effect on Astro, not only giving him his iconic red boots, but also by giving him his name. Until then, Astro had been called almost exclusively Toby. She also helps him escape the circus and go live with Dr. Elephant. From there, the story unravels and spirals, but Kathy is the first character to introduce what really is the I got a text message, but Kathy is the first character to introduce what is really the core of Astro Boy. The relationships. Sure, there's big, bombastic fights, and they go into space several times, but the relationship between Astro and the other characters are really where the show shines. It's not always deep and complex. Sometimes it's as simple as Astro saying, "Hey, stop, this thing is bad," and the enemy goes, "Oh, okay." However, there are a few specific characters that stuck out to me on this rewatch. Richie, the first robot president, Bruton, a robot designed for fighting, and finally Atlas, Astro's main rival. Bruton is more commonly known as Pluto in other dubs, and Richie is known as Rag, so for the sake of consistency, I'll be referring to these characters as their more common names. So if you plan on watching Astro Boy 1980 for yourself, don't get confused. Rag only appears in a single episode. Despite this, he works as a really good pairing with Astro. They both want the same thing, for humanity and robots to live together in harmony. Rag isn't too interesting as a character. He's the general charming and friendly person you would expect a show like this to have. I wish they did more with the idea of Astro having a friend in high political power, but I do like the single episode he appears in. Rag fights for equality. He doesn't just want a baseline, everybody happy, but instead acknowledges that suffering will continue to exist even if these two different groups coexist. He doesn't want to control humanity. He doesn't want to wipe out humanity. He wants to exist alongside them. In case you haven't really picked up on it yet, the robots in Astro Boy are generally a stand-in for minorities. Now, as a white guy, I don't know how much I can really comment on this. I think overall though, it's handled fine enough. I don't think it makes many new, insane takes or really finds a way to flip the conversation on its head, but I don't really think it needs to. Astro Boy is a kid's show. Just simply showing that the people fighting for equal rights are the good guys is a solid enough foundation. I don't think the allegory holds up super well under scrutiny. Robots were created by humanity and can be controlled. I suppose it could stand for slaves rebelling against their masters to be free, but again, white guy, I really don't know how much of this I can comment on. Just keep fighting for what's right and don't let your voice be silenced. Pluto is focused on carrying out his mission, but always seems to let Astro go. Despite wanting to get stronger to defeat Pluto, Astro ends up refusing to fight him. Pluto watches as Astro ends their fight and tries to stop a volcano to save a nearby town. Truly moved by Astro's words and actions, Pluto rebels against his mission and helps Astro out. Due to this, his creators send another powerful robot out, which Pluto ends up sacrificing himself to damage. Pluto doesn't seem like he's a deep character. On the surface, he's sort of a dumb brute, taking fights against the strongest robots in the world. Yet, despite that, he has a kind heart and internal struggles. He sets the kidnapped Urain aside for a fight, which allows Astro to rescue her. He takes advantage of Astro's kindness to request that he call for help. He asks Urain to never forget him as he explodes. Truly, the greatest change is when he helped Astro stop the volcano from erupting. That's the turning point of his life. And whilst Pluto doesn't get to live much longer afterwards, the action he takes after this change really show his change of heart. I think that Astro's strongest power isn't that he's incredibly strong or smart in a fight, but that he can always talk to his villains. He's got a sort of Spider-Man or Sonic the Hedgehog thing going on, where he doesn't always wants to fight and wants to help them if he can. I think the most notable example of this is Atlas. Created by Guys and Skunk, minor recurring villains, Atlas was originally just an evil Astro Boy clone. After his first appearance, he rebuilt himself in Livian, a sort of mirror for Kathy, being one of the few positive influences in Astro and Atlas's life. Atlas has the Omega Factor, which is meant to both humanize but also weaponize a robot. Really, it has no major effect outside of providing a reason as to why Atlas and Astro are so similar. Atlas's early appearances after his rebuilding is focused on trying to recruit Astro to his side. Atlas's goal is simple: enslave humanity in order to stop them from starting wars. He believes his plan to be brilliant. He truly thinks of himself as something wonderful. Yet his plan is not to become equal with humans and live with the pain that comes with life. He wishes to enslave humans for their own good. When confronted on this by Astro on the grounds of, "What about the animals?" Atlas answers,
You can rest assured I'll make a haven for the animals too.
He fails to understand that humans and animals coexisting is a mutually beneficial relationship. His judgment is clouded with what is wrong that he cannot see what is right. Atlas makes her such an interesting antagonist to Astro, who's the optimistic kid who sees the good in everything. Livian is extremely important to Atlas. When he accidentally harms her when he's trying to get Astro, he calls off the fight in order to go tend to her. She's a constant force in his life, trying to get him to better himself. Livian stays by Atlas until their end. Speaking of their end, late into the show it's revealed to both Astro and Atlas that they're essentially brothers, both made from the same design and so similar that they can connect to each other. Through that and Astro's constant insistence on Atlas becoming better, Atlas and Livian end up sacrificing themselves in order to save not just Astro or other robots, but the entire world, humanity included. Astro was finally able to get through to Atlas and convince him that the route he was taking to try and save humanity wasn't the correct one. One of my favorite interactions of theirs comes from the 5th episode. Atlas has kidnapped Astro's unfinished parent robots. Astro breaks in to save them, and that's where Atlas confronts him. Despite the kidnapping and attack, Astro doesn't swing at Atlas. Astro tries so hard to speak to Atlas to convince him to stop. Astro doesn't actually even start fighting until another robot is injured. So in the end, yeah, I think I enjoyed rewatching Astro Boy. I'll probably start working my way through the 2003 adaptation next. I like Atlas's design in there a lot. Reminds me a lot of Mega Man characters. This was a fun little experiment. I love to revisit other things from my childhood if people are interested. But I'll still probably end up making a video about UB Funkies at some point anyway. I think Astro Boy has a few drawbacks a modern audience might not be able to sit through. However, if you think you have the attention span for it, then I'd say go ahead and give it a shot. It's nice, it's sweet, and I think there's a lot to love. I think the early influence of Astro Boy and Mega Man in my life caused my love for robots that I have today. So, hey, thanks Astro Boy. I hope to see you on the TV screens again someday. And as always, thank you for watching. Hit that like button if you like this. This is a different, little experimental video, and subscribe to see more. Next month is my biggest video ever. I've also got a Discord server that I post stuff in. Hope to see you there, and have a wonderful day.